Welcome to Trail of Happiness. First of all, I want to thank you for subscribing to this channel. I started this to just share our adventure and our journey in moving to Portugal and moving to another country, and hopefully pass on some information that might be helpful to people and to those that are thinking of moving to another country. So I'm so grateful that we're almost at 100 subscribers, and it's pretty awesome. So I'm going to try my best to give you all the relevant things that are important about moving to Portugal. But today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I want to share with you 3 things that you probably don't know about Portugal. Now, I know there's a lot of sites and a lot of videos about things that are pretty much all the same things, but I think these are a little bit different, and I think you'll appreciate them, and they're really relevant, especially right now, knowing the history of Portugal. So I'm going to share with you those 3 things. But first of all, I just want to say that if you're thinking about doing something like this, that there's never been a better time. And I know some people would argue against that fact, but I think right now it's so important to really experience life and find happiness in every moment, and enjoy the opportunity to go on adventures and do things and meet new people and try new foods and have new experiences, because that's what it's all about. And although you can plan for it, sometimes it doesn't go the way you planned, but it always turns out to be an amazing experience. So I read a post, somebody put a post and it said, "Stop boring God." And I thought, that's pretty awesome. I don't want to bore God. I don't want to live a boring life. I want to live an exciting life, because I get one shot at this. So I'm going to do the best I can in the short time that I have here to make it the best I can. So that's my speech today. So if you're thinking about it and you're thinking about following your dreams, just do it. Now's the time. We don't know where life is going to go and what's going to happen. The only thing we can control is what we do. So go out and do it. Go out and experience and have an adventure and be happy. So, okay, 3 things that I bet you didn't know about Portugal. So stick around. Ciao. Well, I thought it'd be a great idea to come check out a whole old historical medieval bridge, which is in Padern. And you can see there's the castle, the old castle up there. And we're just going to trek down and go check this bridge out. I thought it'd be a great setting to share these 3 facts about Portugal that you probably didn't know. Check back soon. Bye. All right, we've came to the medieval bridge, and yeah, pretty awesome. They say this was constructed in 1771, but they actually think it was built much earlier than that and reconstructed in 1771. This is the riverbed. It's kind of dried up. Hasn't rained here for a while. We need rain in the Algarve. But check this out. They say this was the bridge that led to the castle on the hill. And there's an inscription here somewhere that says, that has the date, and I'm just trying to find it. Oh, there it is. I don't know if you can see that. Try to get a better shot. Here we go. (1771). Cool. So I thought this would make a great setting to tell you the first thing you probably don't know about Portugal. And that is that the fascist dictator that ran the country for 41 years was on the cover of Time magazine. That's right, Salazar, who ran the country as a dictator for 41 years and was overthrown on April 25th in 1974, which is the year that I was born, by the way. Yeah, there's an article in the Time magazine, and it's kind of interesting what they say. And I'm just going to read you a little blurb from the article, and I'll put it up here so you can see it. And on the news, on the article, it says, Salazar distrusted the news. He suppressed and distorted it for the good of the Portuguese people, who he believed were unfit for facts. Now, I find that pretty interesting, that already back then, when probably radio was the more common media source, they were using propaganda to manipulate the people. But this goes on to another story, because maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but I was born here in Portugal and left with my parents when I was 6 years old. And my dad tells me stories about him and his grandfather when my dad was a kid in the 50s, and Salazar and the dictatorship was in power. Is that my grandfather used to get a little paper, and it was like on onion paper, which was the news, the resistance news. And he would wait till the night when my grandma used to go to bed, and him and my dad was the oldest brother, they would read the news, the resistance news, by the fireplace. And immediately after they read it, they would burn it. And the reason for this was they didn't want my grandma to know, because if she was ever out with other people, she would mention it. And what would happen is they would send the secret police. And the secret police would come if you spoke bad about the government, and they would take you, and then you would disappear, as they say. And there was many people, many men mostly, that disappeared during the era of Salazar. Obviously disappeared. They were obviously killed. But what happened in those days is there was neighbors and people that used to snitch. And that's how they knew if somebody was speaking bad about the government or thinking about overthrowing the government. And people would appear at your house and take you. So it's pretty interesting, and that's how life was back in up until 1974. So for 41 years, and that's the first little tidbit that you probably didn't know about Portugal. And yeah, I think it's kind of relevant today, I guess, what's happening with the media and what's going on with the world. But I'll let you take it with a grain of salt. But that's the number one thing. And this now leads to the second thing you probably didn't know about Portugal, was that on April 25th, 1974, the dictator Salazar, which I mentioned in the first thing, was overthrown. And the way he was overthrown was that the military joined the people to overthrow the government. And of course, if the military sides with the people, then the government has no chance. But what happened that was really interesting, and I'm sure you know some of the story, but it's called the Carnation Revolution. And the reason is because the people all went onto the streets and put red carnations in the guns and the rifles of the soldiers, signifying that it was a peaceful revolution and that the soldiers were not going to be firing any bullets. But what you probably didn't know is that this revolution, or the signal to begin the revolution, was given by way of song on the national broadcasting radio station in Portugal. And that song is called Grandula Vila Morena, and it's part of Portuguese history. And that song was the song that was played to signal the resistance rising up and revolting and taking over the country. So that's tidbit number 2. Now, we're going to walk around and just kind of see the ruins a little bit. And, oh, there's a castle up there. Look at that. Pretty awesome. All right, moving on. There's also an old mill here. I'm just going to show you little bits of it. And this is where they would bring the grain and make flour and bread. So this is pretty spectacular, and there's some other structure that was here as well. But I want to point something out, because first of all, there's so much history here in Portugal, and there's so many cultures and peoples that have been through here throughout the ages, and it makes this country one of the oldest countries in Europe, if not the world. And there's so much history left behind, and relics and monuments that some are Roman, some are Muslim, some are from the Visigoths. There's so much to see, and it's so incredible. You can feel, the energy, or the stories. It's almost like the stones speak to you, and you could feel, or even you can even hear like horses and people, as if it's still echoing here in these valleys and hills. It's pretty awesome. But I'm going to show you something that's pretty cool that the government's done. And again, you can look this up on Portugal Tourism, and they have hiking trails throughout all these areas that they've marked out, so you never get lost. And I'm just going to show you one of them here. See, there's the little marks, and it basically, throughout these valleys and trails, there's little posts, and they have these markings on them. And if you just go onto the website, the markings, the legend, and we'll explain to you what the markings are for. But it's pretty awesome. Oh, look at this. There's an old stone. I'm assuming that used to be for grinding the grain. Wow. Pretty awesome. All right, let's keep going and stay tuned for the third thing you probably didn't know about Portugal. Okay, so the third and final thing that you probably didn't know about Portugal, and this one is probably my favorite today, and I'll explain to you the reason for that. But there's this gentleman named Fernando Pessoa, and he is one of the most important literary figures of the 20th century. And Mr. Fernando Pessoa is known for poetry, for being a philosopher, and he wrote a book called The Message, which is a collection of his poetry. And there's a story. And as you know, and we've discussed already how old Portugal is. Portugal also had one of the longest standing empires. And they also had an expansive territory reaching out to the Americas and India, even Japan. So they had a really massive empire. And they kind of had a fall from grace, obviously, and kind of lost that power, if you will. And this Fernando Pessoa wrote a story almost as a prediction. And he is kind of like a prophet, because he was a mystical man. And in his poetry, in his stories, he talks about the Fifth Empire, which is the resurgence of Portugal as being a prominent country or peoples in the new Fifth Empire, which is to come. And that Fifth Empire is where materialism or science connects with consciousness, and there's a kind of a molding of the unseen and the seen that allows people to embark on a new way of living. And he says this will come about by a man called, well, not called, but a man known as o encoberto, which translates to the hidden one. And so there will be a man that will bring about this new knowledge of being connected to consciousness and to a higher power, and it will change the world, and that will be the start of the Fifth Empire, which will be a better world that will change everything, and Portugal will be at the forefront. So I guess that's there's a lot of connections there with a lot of movies and stories, The Matrix, The One, and I find that really fascinating, and I bet you didn't know that. So check it out. It's called A Mensagem, The Message, and maybe more than ever, we need this hidden one to turn up and help us launch a new way of living and a new way of being human and being kind and caring and understanding that there's magic to life. It's not just about the things and material. There's something else going on. Anyway, getting too philosophical. Those are the 3 things. I hope you enjoyed it. And ooh, it's getting a little windy. I'm gonna walk back to the car. And yeah, if you like, subscribe. Leave me a message on your thought. Leave me a message. Let me know what you think. And let me know what you want to see. You know, I'm here. If you want to know something or there's something that you want to learn about, then drop me a message and I'll try to make a video about it. All right. Anyway, I'm getting hungry. It's lunchtime. Got to go find a nice place to eat. That won't be hard. Ciao.